Let's try this again. Welcome, Mama. My name is Sam. I am a dedicated matrescence educator, a passionate advocate of motherhood, and a mom just like you. On this channel, we dive deep into the world of matrescence and explore all of the incredible, yet often very challenging moments of motherhood. I believe that you deserve to enjoy this. I believe you deserve to be seen. And most importantly, I believe you deserve to find yourself through motherhood instead of losing yourself to it. So hit that subscribe button and let's jump into today's topic of what is matrescence. On the channel, we are going to talk a lot about matrescence, which is why I think this video is important. But we're also going to talk just a lot of mom commentary. Momentary? I like that. And we're going to talk about the different experiences of motherhood and the highs and the lows and the annoying parts and the wonderful parts and how we can make the most out of this experience that is so fleeting. And hopefully we can help each other through it. I'll offer advice where I can as a matrescence educator and just as a mom who has learned along the way. And I would love to hear your experience as well. What's worked for you and what hasn't. And hopefully we can support each other through this experience and continue to bring back that enjoyment to motherhood. But for now, let's talk about it. What is matrescence? Matrescence is a transitional period into motherhood. That's the original definition. It's from going from maiden to mother, or an individual woman to becoming a mother. The term was coined in the 1970s by Dr. Dana Raphael, who is a medical anthropologist, and the term comes from adolescence. In adolescence, that's the transitional period of going from being a child to an adult. And in that time frame, so much changes for us. Our bodies change, our hormones change, our physical appearance changes, our viewpoint on the world around us changes. We start to have romantic relationships or start to have those intense feelings. Our position in the world changes, like how we view ourselves in relation to other people changes. So much changes, and we're often initially supported through that. It still is a period of time where we don't really get the support we need, nor would we probably accept it if it was offered because of what we go through in adolescence. But it is this really big shift, and it's a no going back point, right? Like you can't go back to being a child after you've gone through adolescence. And matrescence is the same thing. It's the transition from being a maiden to becoming a mother. And in that time frame, we experience so many changes in across multiple domains that we'll talk about. But just off the bat, think about it. Your body changes, your mind changes, the way you view your world changes, the way the world views you changes. You're now a mom, and people do view you different, and you're reckoning who you are in this world now. How do you fit in this world as a mom? Your daily life changes. So many things change, just like in adolescence. But unfortunately, this is a term that most women never know. And it's such an interesting thing because anytime I say the term matrescence and I tell someone what it is, if it's someone who hasn't gone through matrescence, it's like, okay, like there's no recognition, there's really no understanding. It's just like, okay, that's a word. But when I say it to a mom who has never heard that word before, oftentimes their eyes light up and there's this like exhalation of, oh my gosh, that's what that was. And so it is this important term and it's often not talked about. And back in the 70s, Dr. Dana Raphael noticed that this transition was happening, but it was often being very overlooked. And I'm going to read what she said here. She stated that during this process of going from just you to becoming a mother, this is a rite de passage or a rite of passage. In this, changes occur in a woman's physical state, in her status within her group, in her emotional life, in her focus of daily life, in her own identity, and in her relationships all around her. Since the 1970s, when Dr. Raphael coined this term, there's been more research expanding upon what this term means and what is matrescence and what does it look like. And one of those researchers, Dr. Trudell Thomas, expanded upon how matrescence occurs. So she postulated that it didn't occur upon a birth. It occurred upon becoming a mother. So any means of becoming a mother. So adoption, surrogacy, becoming a step parent, all of those instances can bring upon matrescence. And Trudell Thomas went on to expand on the definition of matrescence, and her definition really resonated with me. She called matrescence a disorienting and problematic rite of passage, and went as far as to call it a life crisis, one that can either be enriching and expanding or that can be detrimental depending on the experience that you have. And she reflects on her own experience in a 2001 article, and she says, I'm going to read this verbatim because it really resonated with me. Birth and parenting manuals, advertisements, and movies all feature happy, confident mothers whom infant care comes naturally to. Women were treated well by others. They were self-assured mothers who found childcare readily. My own experience was much more varied and complex. Thus, I experience and continue to experience a grating cognitive dissonance and ongoing contradiction between public images of motherhood and my personal experience of it. And essentially, what she's saying there is before she became a mom, she had this vision of what motherhood was due to society and due to really the media and everything we see around motherhood. And then when she became a mom, she experienced this cognitive dissonance, as she says, between what she thought motherhood would be, what society was telling her motherhood was and should be, and her actual experience. And that was most certainly the case for me. I always wanted to be a mom. I had a vision of who I was going to be as a mom. I had a vision of what early motherhood would look like. And I do think a lot of that came from society and in our day and age, social media. And so when my experience was different, I internalized that as I was doing something wrong. There was something wrong with me. There was something wrong with us. And I wasn't meant to be a mom. I wasn't good at this. And we did have some issues. We had oral restrictions that I talk about in a later video, but it was still a relatively normal experience. And fighting the change that I was going through really contributed to the pain that I felt in those early days instead of leaning into matrescence. And in the 2010s, this research continued on. And one of the most prominent researchers today on the topic, Dr. Aurelia Athan, she says that matrescence is a disorienting and reorienting rite of passage, meaning we get disoriented in our place in the world, and then we find our new place in the world. We have to reorient ourselves in the world across several domains. And her domains were physical, changes in our body, hormone fluctuations, psychological, social, and spiritual. And Nikki McCune, who is my mentor, my teacher, and the creator of the Seasons of Matrescence model, she expanded on these domains and added to them. And I think these are more comprehensive. They cover more things, and I think I align with this the most. She said these domains of change are physical, psychological, social, career, spiritual, political, cultural, and economical. And we'll talk about all of these individually in later videos, but I think that does encompass a lot of the different areas where we experience change. We might not change in all of these areas, but where we change, in which domains we change, is really going to depend on who we are as people, our values, and the external influences we have in our life and our external experiences we've been through. Nikki also added some distinctions about matrescence that I think are very important. First of all, matrescence happens to some extent with each pregnancy. Who we are in relation to our children and to the world changes when we add a new child to our family. She also kind of expanded on when matrescence occurs initially. I think it originally was within like the first 6 months to a year. And she said this can last up to 2 to 3 years. And I feel that, having a 2-year-old and still feeling like I'm finding my place in the world. She also made a statement that hits me every time I read it. And with having a 2-year-old who's changing every day, this hits me so hard, that our child's development creates a cascading impact to mothers, and we are forever new mothers. So with each change our child goes through, we have to change a little bit. And it's this constant cascade of, okay, here we are. Oh, we're doing this now. So how do I act? Who do I become? And we have to continue changing with our children, which can be hard to navigate. No matter the research, the consensus is clear that this is a critical transitional period that is overlooked by the medical community. And in not discussing this and not talking about it and not preparing mothers and educating them on it, we really are allowing women to suffer, and to suffer in silence. Because when we don't talk about this, when we don't acknowledge that this is meant to happen, it feels like something is wrong with you when it does happen, when there's not. You are meant to change. Matrescence is universal and undeniable. It will happen, but the way it happens to you will be unique, again, based on all those external factors and who you are as a person. And if you want, we can do a whole video on what are those external factors. So let me know in the comments below if that would be something that'd be helpful to know. So I just want to remind you right now that if you feel broken, if you feel like something is wrong with you for feeling lost in motherhood, you are not. You have gone through one of the biggest, if not the biggest, transitions in the human experience. If you feel disoriented, you are right where you are meant to be. And now it's time for that reorientation piece. And so while this is often challenging, it does have the power to transform us in positive ways. And research supports the notion that when we view motherhood as this stepping stone, as this life event that is meant to move us to the next level and help to become this new elevated version of ourselves, we feel happier and more fulfilled and more content in motherhood, as opposed to trying to go back to who we were before motherhood and viewing motherhood as this thing that's holding us back. So how do we do that? How do we have a more positive matrescence experience? Well, we're going to talk about that a lot on here, but a few things are education and exploration. learn about matrescence, watch videos like this, learn from other people's experiences. There are matrescence courses by my teacher, Nikki McCoon, by Taylor Amy Kabaz. She also has a beautiful book called Mama Rising. That's a great education piece. And you can also view some of the research that's out there. I think the education piece is huge. And again, I'm going to be covering a lot of this on this channel. So I'd encourage you to subscribe and keep coming back because I'm going to have it digestible, bite-sized, and all of it in one place for you. Second thing is leaning into self-discovery. And so how have you changed? Who do you want to become? Really re-examining everything that's happened to you and accepting that can be really powerful. Another thing we can do is really accept that this is going to take time. Matrescence doesn't happen overnight. It's not at the birth. It's not at the moment of becoming a mother. It's through the lived experiences of becoming a mother. It's through those changes that take place. And in Nikki McCoon's model, The Seasons of Matrescence, she looks at our whole experience in life, our experience through motherhood as seasons. And very often, the winter season is that postpartum period or that period of loss. Everything's kind of fallen away in our pregnancy or in those early days. Who we once were has fallen away in that autumn, and we're in this winter. But after winter, inevitably comes a spring. How long that winter is, how dark that winter is, that really depends on what we do in that time frame and our experience. And some of those are out of our control. But recognizing that it does take time, winter takes time, but we have to have a winter to have a spring. And so looking at that light at the end of the tunnel and accepting where you are, but knowing that it's not going to be forever can be really powerful. And if you're in that position in that winter to work on yourself, to kind of tend to the things you can tend to have a brighter spring, I would encourage you to do that. And lastly, lean into the beauty of it. Whether you're spiritual or not, think of this as an evolution. You are changing at a soul level. The things you care about changed overnight. It's really easy to see the negative stuff in motherhood. Motherhood is riddled with it. But when we look for those beautiful moments, when we look at things as that catalyst of growth, it really does become a brighter experience. We see more good things. We see more positive things when we look for them. So even though it is difficult, and I am not sitting here telling you to enjoy every moment because you won't, but try to look at this as that evolution piece. Try to look at that loss of who you were as an opportunity to become who you were meant to be as a person and as a mom. So I hope that gives a good understanding of what matrescence is. I could talk on this forever, so I'm sorry if it wasn't super cohesive, but I hope this can be a good resource for you moving forward. If you want more information about matrescence, you can go to welcome-mama.com where I have more resources as well as my Welcome Mama journal that should be coming out here this fall. And in the description below, I've listed a bunch of those researchers that I talked about, as well as some of their works and some links to where you can find their research. For more short form content, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at _Welcome Mama. As always, thank you for being here. Welcome Mama. You deserve to enjoy this.